Hello, and thank you for joining us here today for another episode of Trilogy Talks. This series is featuring DruvStar. It's their second episode on cybersecurity impacts, featuring Manjeet Gomra Singh from DruvStar. Manjeet Gomra Singh is the founder and CEO for DruvStar, so welcome, sir.
Thank you, Eric.
So in the first episode, we focused on some of the history of DruvStar and some recent issues around cybersecurity, the impacts that it's had to the industry. Today, we're going to dive a little deeper. We're going to discuss the background and motivation of these hackers and these bad actors themselves. So, guess we'll jump right into that. So, Manjeet, can you tell me a bit about the profile of these bad actors? Like, who are the
I,
culprits and what motivates them to do this stuff?
absolutely, Eric. The bad actors, and sometimes called hackers or cyber criminals, they come in a few categories. The commercial enterprises and the tribal and gaming enterprises, they are mostly facing cyber criminals, but there are other types of hackers out there as well. For example, there are some nation state hacking that happens on a regular basis. There are hacktivists who actually will commit a crime to promote their political agenda, and so there is some hacking that happens through hacktivists as well. Um, and the terrorist organizations also employ hacking techniques for a variety of purposes. But the most important one for us, for the industry that we are working in, is really the cyber criminals who are launching cyber attacks. Over the years, the nature of these criminals has changed. Of late, given the development that's happened in security technologies, we have really seen two major groups emerge as the main major players in cybersecurity attacks on the commercial industry, in gaming, and in the travel organizations. And these are really either the technology developers, these are cybersecurity ransomware technology developers that have become suppliers to what I would call ransomware operators. And the ransomware operators are not technically savvy enough to develop the technologies that they use others' technologies to launch their attack. So those are the two types that we see. And of late, I've been seeing more and more ransomware operators that are impacting our industry.
Really? So, I guess when looking at that, it kind of begs the question, like, what's the playbook, of these hackers, of these bad actors? Why do they choose who they choose? So I think it's going to be important that we understand what creates, you know, the risk, right? So,
Yeah.
so what would you say is typically like, what are they looking for?
The playbook is actually very simple and it's gotten standardized over the years. They prepare to understand their victim, and they'll perform reconnaissance, and then they will prepare to launch an attack. And for that, they're determining a port of entry. They are harvesting user credentials that they're going to use through a variety of channels. Uh, and then, they'll try to get into the IT estate of the victim, and then, try to escalate their privileges to try to get more and more control of the infrastructure. And eventually they end up stealing either data from the victim or encrypting the data. In some cases, they end up doing both of those techniques to build further pressure on their victims. And so that's really their attack pattern. And the third one is then exploitation, meaning now they've got control of your infrastructure or your data, and they will often send a ransomware note to the victim, and then engage with the victim to uh, get some monetary benefit from this. That's really the common pattern that we have seen emerge in the commercial industry. It's quite simple, basically somehow study your the enterprise you're going to attack, launch your attack, and then take possession of something precious, and then turn that into something that you can exploit.
Absolutely. So there's definitely some heavy risks I feel for the properties, the people who hold the data. Do you feel like that AI and other the current trends that are coming in, to that cyberspace, do you think that those are going to increase those risks?
Yes, we have actually seen several factors that impact the behavior of the bad actors. But let me kind of take a step back on this. It's a very prevalent problem in the industry today in terms of cybersecurity attacks and ransomware. Splunk did a study in recent times, and they found that 96% of their respondents actually had been attacked. They have been fell victim to a
Wow.
ransomware attack. And that's a mind-boggling number. That's a huge percentage. That's
Yeah.
96%, 96 out of 100. That's massive. And of those, 83% actually have paid some sort of ransom. And so that again is a large number. Now, this is across multiple industries. I'm not talking specifically about gaming or tribal, but these numbers are staggering. Um, Further, what they found was that 1 in 11 has paid over $1 million of
Wow.
ransomware, whereas about half of the attackers they walked away with 100,000, at least $100,000 ransom. So you can kind of see the size of the problem that we are dealing with today. Um, and so that's really um, that really speaks to the point, the fact that this is a major problem in the industry, and the trends that are really enforcing this growth that we are seeing in cyber attacks are the following. The first one is that the attack surface has expanded quite significantly over the past decade. With the use of cloud computing, with the use of multiple vendors for a variety of functions that an enterprise uses. There's a large software supply chain, IT supply chain, whether those are on-prem solutions or cloud solutions or hybrid solutions. They cut across all of them. And then cybersecurity is very, very hard, especially when you're dealing with multiple systems that are at different levels of maturity, and they've got years of cybersecurity problems that have gotten built in. So it's a massive undertaking to keep up to date with that IT estate. So the other thing that's really expanded the attack surface is the digitization that's happening in the industry. For example, the marketing programs have really become digital over the past decade. And so the player's information or the patient's information is in the systems, and the communication that's happening between the consumer and the enterprise is really all digital today. And so that's expanded the attack surface area. In addition to that, we see within gaming, we see several underlying trends that are expanding that attack surface. For example, the sports betting explosion that's happened in the country over the past 3 years, the iGaming increase in iGaming that's happening in the country, the digital gaming in terms of cashless gaming systems that are coming into the land-based enterprises. These are all expanding the surface area where somebody can come in and attack and launch an attack. So that's actually the fundamental issue with where we are today. The second one is, like I touched on, the fact that there are multiple organizations whose systems are used to operate an enterprise. Whether that's an HR system, or that's a financial system, that's a patent management system, food and beverage system, and a variety of other systems that are sitting there. And so they have different levels of maturities. Some of these systems were built 20 years back, and they've been barely kept up to date with the latest technologies. So the problems that existed in those systems are often exploited by the bad actors. So that's the one dimension of this, is just the complexity of the IT estate. On the other side, You've touched on the fact that AI is getting, is it going to be used? And absolutely, that is already being used. Deepfake technology is being used to create, credible visual, and audio attacking tools that are being used for launching malware attacks. And so that's really the bad actors are using technology, and there are some people in the industry who believe that the bad actors actually have an upper hand when it comes to modern technology to launch an attack. Remember, an organization has to defend itself in at least 1,000 ways, um, whereas an
Sure.
attacker has to find only one way to
One.
get in.
Yeah.
So there is a disparity between defense and offense here, and so as a result of that, the bad actors do have a little bit of an upper hand. But definitely the emergence that's happened in the digital space and the machine learning and AI work that's happening is being used both for offense. The bad actors are using it. On the other hand, companies like DruvStar are using AI and ML algorithms to try to predict and defend organizations from these attack. And so it's
And
being
from kind of
definitely.
like a counter attack standpoint, right? To predict, where the next, security threat's going to come through and be kind of one step ahead, right?
Yeah, that definitely predictability, looking at the large amount of data that can be processed to figure out where the weaknesses are, which could be exploited, and then look for the leading indicators, which might indicate someone preparing to launch an attack on an organization. Technology is definitely available, and it's growing in terms of that use case for on the cyber defense side.
That's definitely very, very, very fascinating. And you touched on this just a little bit ago when you talked about the ransomware that so much ransom has been in fact paid out to these bad actors. But it begs the question: there's got to be some risk associated with going along with that plan in order to get the data back, right? Could you explain to me what maybe some of those risks are, what you've seen out there?
Yeah, the risks are that when an enterprise's data is stolen, the bad actors have got it, and let's say an organization has um, actually paid a ransom to protect their data. Um, there are really no guarantees that can be in place to ensure that the data doesn't leak. Further than that, there are multiple attack patterns that get used. There are the cyber criminals who are coming in from outside, but there's also risk around insiders collaborating with the bad actors or using the company's data for their own personal benefit, right? And so there are risks both from inside and outside around data that happens. In terms of the cybercrime that's really happening, uh, it is very different than what we have seen in other places. um, the fundamental nature of the cybercrime is the same as any other crime. There is some damage that's done for the victim, whether that's to their reputation or to their business, and there's an increased risk, as we have discussed. There's increased risk to the business because their consumers' data has now been stolen, and that can be harvested for further attacks on the consumers whose data has been stolen. And also, it can be harvested for launching further attacks on the suppliers and partners of the organization whose data has been breached. So it's very similar to other cyber crimes, but it is different. There are some challenges that emerge in cybersecurity space. One is that the crime is really happening in the digital space, right? So it's actually most of the crime is being done, where either data has been breached or a ransomware has been demanded and in many cases paid out. And so it's all involving digital space. So that's one differentiator here. So you're really to investigate this particular type of crime, you got to be really very advanced in understanding how to trace digital prints across various devices and across systems. So the nature of investigation is different than many other types of crimes. The other one, which is very impactful in this space, is really the jurisdictional challenges. Some of the attacks are launched domestically, but a great majority are actually launched across country boundaries, right? So from a different country altogether. So prosecuting those criminals is difficult because now you have to cross the
Interpol.
jurisdiction. Yeah, absolutely. So you're working across legislative and nation boundaries, and obviously the systems in different countries are different, and regulations are different. So one has to navigate the challenges around different jurisdictions. The requirements, what would be considered a cybercrime in one country may not be considered a cybercrime in the other country. So there are all those sensitivities with the local law and local practices that what one has to work through. And so it truly requires international cooperation across the various parties. And the FBI actually does an amazing job. They have a victim assistance program. They put out notices on a regular basis on what they are seeing. They have established specialized investigation units. Um, and I'm just picking that as an example because I see them in action. But there are such organizations that are available across most of the nations that we are talking about here. So the cybercrime is different, and for the reasons I've mentioned here, it needs to be handled differently. And so it's still an emerging field in the industry.
And that is definitely a lot. That's a big lift across multiple platforms, multiple countries. I mean, so that again kind of brings to that question, like, are there any guarantees to outcomes? What are the future risks? Especially if you as a company pay the ransom, I suppose my first thought would be, well, what prevents them from doing that again? Because are they going to tell me how they got in? I doubt it. So what prevents them from doing it again, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the cases that I've been involved in, they will give you an indicator of how they got in, but you have to understand there could be 1,000 ways one could get in, and just because you've learned about one or two of those doesn't mean that you really have strong cyber defense. There's no guarantees. The only guarantee is, that an organization is going to get attacked. So it's not a question of if, it's only a question of when. And
Wow.
so, from a cyber defense point of view, what we recommend to the organizations is, you do a pretty comprehensive assessment to understand your risk. What an organization has to be able to profile its risk, understand what is really critical for the organization. What I mean by that is, the data, the IT infrastructure, and prioritize where the risk is. You can't say, well, I've got this tool or I've got this service, therefore I'm protected. That is actually too simplistic and really doesn't do enough to protect one. So an organization really has to understand that its risk around cybersecurity and understand that profile and have a governance program that fits the risk profile that has been developed. So understanding the risk and then having continuous monitoring, using cyber hygiene techniques can actually reduce the risk quite significantly. And so that's what we advise our partners and our clients that we work with, is really to kind of it's a to undertake a risk assessment, and then fine-tune your program to meet your risk, where you're more sensitive, the more valuable assets. Those are the ones you want to have the strongest governance program. You want to have continuous monitoring. You want to have observability of IT estate, and then understand, where there might be risks going on. Um, and so, like I mentioned, it's not a question of whether somebody is going to get attacked. It's only a question of, when they're going to get attacked. So what that means is that you have to be prepared for that attack. And if we think that we're going to put in a business continuity plan in force when the attack happens, and expect that that will work well enough just because it's written down somewhere, that's not true. You have to practice it on a regular basis. So, you have to. There are exercises that an organization can do, just like they prepare for an emergency. They prepare for other kinds of emergencies. So they should prepare for a cybersecurity related emergency as well. So business continuity plans around that, incident response handling, all of that should be a standard practice in a modern business.
Well, with the world making its change, obviously, to the digital age, and with these bad actors out there, with these hackers out there, and the threats being out there, it definitely comes as a massive comfort to know that there are companies, there are resources out there, just like DruvStar, that are being vigilant against all of this threat, and keeping our data and our information and our companies and our basically our entire infrastructure secure and safe. So I thank you for that, and I commend your efforts. And I think with that, that about concludes the episode today. So I thank you all for watching. Please contact DruvStar for cybersecurity needs and tune into the next Trilogy Talks. Thank you, Manjeet.
Thank you very much. Bye.